Step in. No, thanks.
Oh yeah, like we're all
We're all
learning
new at
here.
this.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I mean that is a great introduction into the whole um, hour that we'll have ish. It's hopefully informal and we're all learning lots of different stuff. And hopefully it can just be a place for people to come together and learn from each other. Let me see if my PowerPoint is going. Oh yeah, okay. So basically the idea is for this kind of flow for the power hour, we'll do some quick introductions. And then we have some expert guest spots to get our juices flowing for discussion. And then we'll have some small group breakout chats. And then we'll come together as a big group and report out from the small groups. I'm hoping that the small group kind of like feeds into a larger group discussion. Again, it's not anything too formal, just a place where we can all come together and then have some closing thoughts. So that's kind of what you can expect for this little time. Find there's a lag in my slides actually moving on to when I want them to move on. Does anyone who's a more Zoom expert know how to get my slide to actually move on while I'm sharing my screen?
If you have to back out of the, can you back out, Kate, of the presentation view and
just go into the,
yeah, if it's been, I've seen it happen one other time.
All right, let me try resharing my screen and we'll not.
That's my non-expert fix.
All right, now am I sharing my screen now? All right, and yep. Do you see the whole, do you see the whole thing or just the, one slide?
Nope, we see your desktop, so we'll see the little slides on the left.
Okay, well, since I was having trouble before, I guess that's okay. We'll just go with that so that I can actually move through the slides. But one thing that I wanted to do for this group in particular, as we're thinking about getting it outside, is just do a small Indigenous land acknowledgement. And Indigenous people have been taking care of the land for time immemorial. In Wisconsin, we have several different tribes that have been doing that and bands within those tribes. And so I think it's just important to acknowledge that caretaking. And as you as educators are thinking about going outside, just acknowledging Indigenous people and the caretaking that they've done on the land is really important. So that's kind of like a brief rendition, and that's all I want to say about that one. But about the WCEE, oh, hang on, I want to share a poll. I'm learning lots of new things as I'm going. So I'm hoping that as I'm going and being like a kind of bumbling person, that you are like, all right, it's okay to be a little bit bumbling in this whole world. So I'm going to launch a poll, and it's just trying to understand kind of the audience that we have here today. So I'm going to launch that, and then you can kind of you can do that as I'm talking about big WCEE things, and then I'm going to try and end the poll. I haven't actually done a poll before, and then I'll try and share the results. And so if things don't work, that's okay. But it's just a way to try and get us to understand who's all here with us today. So anyway, the Wisconsin Center for Environmental Education was created in 1990, and it was really an effort to envision sustainable human and natural communities, especially via education. And so what we do is provide leadership and resources to advance sustainable human and natural communities. We've got GHS that comes through us, the Green and Healthy Schools, and we have LEAF, which is the Forestry Education Program, and then we got KEEP, which is the energy education program. And there's a couple representatives from each of those programs here today, so that's awesome. Thanks for coming, everyone. Oh, nah, we'll do introductions later. Oops, now I have like 9 million boxes and I only have one screen, so let me try and stop that. Okay, so I particularly work for LEAF, and Steve, who's my co-host and kind of partner in crime in terms of doing the tech stuff today, also works for LEAF. And we were really to connect formal and non-formal educators with forestry education materials in Wisconsin in particular, which I think is pretty cool. There's not a lot of states that have such an education program. And so a little bit of word to that. It's a partnership between the DNR and the Wisconsin Center for Environmental Education within CNR. And you can see that we really work statewide. And with that, let me go back to the poll. That's all the introduction I'm gonna do. I feel like most people know a little bit about who we are and what we're doing. So I'm gonna give you maybe 10 more seconds to do the poll. So if you haven't gotten it done, then too bad, so sad. All right, I'm gonna end polling and then let's share the results. Are the results sharing with people right now? Okay,
Yes.
so let's see what we got. The first question was about comfort in teaching outside. It sounds like we kind of have a little bit of a range. So there's a fair amount of people that are pretty comfortable and then, or super comfortable, some people that are pretty comfortable, and then a few people that are not super duper comfortable. That's my translation of the official scientific poll. And then the next question was just about my school district or place I teach is supportive of taking classes outside or not. And actually, this is kind of encouraging. It seems like there's a majority that is very supportive, which is great. And then there's also a other end of the spectrum that's not a little bit supportive, but positively, there's not any school districts that are not at all supportive. So that's kind of cool to see. And then I feel like I have great places to teach outside near my school or place of teaching. And this one's kind of across the board. There's some people that have like tons of places, some people that have pretty many, and then there's some people that have a few. But there's not any people that don't see not many at all or none at all. So yay. It seems like we're trending towards like EE is awesome and can be done. And then in terms of connecting learning outside to subjects that you teach, it's a little bit less than 50-50, but most people are feeling like very easy or pretty easy. So eventually, as we break out into small group discussions, just kind of think about that as we're doing that. And then we'll come back for larger group discussions too. But that's sort of what our audience is at. Does anyone have any questions about the poll or who we are or what's going on with our audience? All right. So as kind of an introduction to folks that are here, I wanted to introduce the Wisconsin Community Tree Map. Maybe some of you are familiar with it, maybe some of you are not. But I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so I can transition to going to an internet-based browser. And basically for the introduction, we're going to add a tree to the Wisconsin Community Tree Map, even though you're not actually measuring or doing anything with the tree. But I'll show you how to do it. And then it'll also give us, it'll kill two birds with one stone, though I don't like that metaphor because it's killing birds with stones, which isn't the greatest metaphor. But it will show you like, hey, here's this Wisconsin community tree map. We have some really great resources and a course that you can take to get more familiar with it if you think it's something your students would like. And then we'll also see where everyone is from. So Steve, if you could share that link in the chat right now, and then I'm gonna share a different screen.
Sure. And just so everyone knows, if the chat gets a little long and you lose where the links are, I put them all at the very beginning of the chat. So actually that link I'll just reshare.
Oops, that's not the right one.
Oops.
Hang on. Yeah, see, you can see that we're all new at this, and that's totally okay. Where is the tab for the
Thanks.
Wisconsin Community Tree Map?
Just to say thanks, Steve, for adding, because I joined after you put them in the chat, so I don't see them.
And we wondered if that was the case. Okay, so.
But I see that you added it now.
Yep, and I'll put the login information too.
All right, so I'm just having some navigation issues. Oops, now it's like not showing up. Let me minimize this. I'm sure all you teachers that have been having to do this like all the time are like, oh my God, look at these newbies. And thank you so much for working in this virtual world as we are all trying to figure out how to do things well. So now I'm gonna see.
So the login and password are they're just like a test login and password for anybody, like a guest user password, is that right?
Yeah. So I'll show you how to do it.
Okay.
And then that'll kind of be like, well, okay, I'll show you. So right now I'm going into this little login button. My screen is sharing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to log in. Oops, now I got to move that window. And then the login is test school, capital T, and then with a hyphen between the test and the school. And then the password is Tamarack. Oops, Tamarack 2018. So that's just how you log in. It's pretty simple. And then what you're going to need to do is go over to the right side here. And there's, you have to kind of scroll down and go into the test organization, not the test school. It's a little confusing. Most of the time the logins don't have that disjoint. But then once you click on the right login, you'll see that it's slowly populating. Sometimes the tree map gets a little bit slow as people are using it, so just be patient. But it's really easy to add, move, and delete trees. And the Wisconsin Community Tree Map is just a community inventory of townships and city trees in Wisconsin. And we've been rolling it out with educators, and we have a whole course and some curriculum materials to go along with it, but it's a really great activity to do both remotely and if you need to do social distance stuff. And so then anyway, you just go to add a tree, and I'm gonna pick tree, and then I'm gonna pick by GPS because it's gonna automatically connect to whatever GPS system my computer has, which maybe is a little bit scary, but whatever. And then you can input all these different data types. And there's a lot of different classification systems that you can see here that you would collect if you were doing it in your class. But for our intents and purposes, just to kind of get an introduction to the tool, you can just add your favorite tree or one that is up there. Of these ones, ooh, I've been really enjoying the aspen. The colors are changing and they're so beautiful right now. So I'm going to add an aspen just because we're making this up. And then another important variable is the diameter in inches. So I'm just gonna make it up and say that it's a really small aspen and it's only a 6-inch diameter. And then it should automatically add the tree. You'll see that there's, again, a whole bunch of other variables that you can collect in terms of data. But there we have my little dot on the map. And the cool thing about the Wisconsin Community Tree Map is like we have this data and here you got my address. So you can all come visit me now because you know my address. I just got a new house, so come on visit. And then you can go to those details and there they are again. You can edit them really easily. It's pretty easy to do. But then, the really cool thing is you can see all the eco benefits that the trees are giving. And you can do this not just on a treescape level, that's an individual tree, but a landscape level. So there's all sorts of different parameters that we're not going to get into, but you can see the overall monetary benefit, the stormwater management benefits, property value, energy conservation, air quality, carbon. And once you start thinking about all the cool benefits that a tree does, you're like, oh my God, we should really do some stewardship stuff. So if everyone can just take a moment to add a tree to the map, I'm gonna leave the screen live and we'll see if they add live as we're doing that. And if you have questions, I'll pull up my chat here and I can start navigating those chat questions too, since I'm not presenting at the same moment.
Kate, was I correct in saying that that was a link I just put on for our LEAF online course for the Wisconsin Community Tree Map?
Yep, yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Well, we've got some trees coming on. So you can see, like, as you're adding trees, it's a really pretty user-friendly tool. And if you get into the nitty-gritty details, there's all sorts of analyses that you can do within it. But even just doing a tree inventory of your community is a really cool way to engage students within all this stuff that they're doing. So I just want people to be like, all right, here's this cool resource. And again, the main variables that you need to know are tree ID and diameter at breast height, which are both pretty simple things. And we have made a lot of online resources so that even if you're working remotely or you're like, oh my God, I don't know anything about tree ID, we have resources available for you. Are people finding that to be okay? Just as you're navigating probably different browsers and things too. We got a couple people in Milwaukee. It looks like some folks, oh, a crabapple tree. Someone likes a crabapple. Nice. See. Ooh, a walnut. That's a nice Janesville representation. Oops, that's a crabapple again. Ooh, a river birch. That's a beautiful tree. I love its bark. All right, so that was just kind of like a quick intro thing that I wanted to do. If people have questions about how to do that, or if you're still working on it and I'm continuing to talk, feel free to keep working on that and we can always come back to it. But it's a really cool resource that we have created through the DNR Urban Forestry team and LEAF. So just know that that exists and it works really well in these socially distant times. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen again for a second. And then Steve, if I see Rachel has made a comment, but if you, as I'm kind of going back to things, if you want to talk, or Rachel, if you want to talk, go ahead.
We just did this the other day, and it was really awesome to see kids out there and being excited about identifying trees. And they plotted all of them. I haven't gone back and checked any of them, but they went on the community map. And the cooler part was that in our district, we had 2 teachers that went and did this. And so they're like, hey, let's just put it into the map right away, instead of, having them do it on paper. I was like, I haven't done it in a while. Let's see. And they're like, oh no, we got it. Like they remembered, they figured it out, they made it happen. So it was pretty cool to have that connection. So.
Sweet, thanks. And Rachel, I should share, we've updated some of the resources, I think, since I last did that tree map workshop with you. So remind me to share them with you. All right, before we get into small group discussions, which I think will be the most fun part of this thing, instead of me showing you things and talking at you, I just wanted to share a few upcoming opportunities. Again, we have a couple more of these power hours coming up. So if you think this is useful, which again, I think the small group discussions are going to be the most useful, so don't bow out now. Those are coming up. We have some DNR lecture series coming up. The Green and Healthy Schools Wisconsin Virtual Classroom Learning Series has been going on and will continue to go on. And then there's some climate solution workshops coming up. The easiest way to find these is through the WCEE professional development calendar. So Steve, you want to like throw that link into the chat now? That'd be awesome. And then
Sure.
With that, oops, we have some guest spots to feed into small group discussion. So we got Paul Stengel and Rachel Farrick, and I see that we're getting a little bit short on time. So I'm going to do really short introductions for both of you, if that's okay. But I just asked Paul and Rachel both to sort of give like a little bit of background and information on the work that they've been doing. Paul works for the Janesville School District. He's a program support teacher and a school forest coordinator, but he used to work in elementary school, and he kind of wears lots of different hats. So that's my less formal introduction than I thought I would do. And then Rachel works for the Cedarburg School District and Riveredge Nature Center. It's a cool collaboration between school districts and nature centers. She's the scientist in residence. She also does PLT facilitation. And I think let's have Rachel go first, if you're okay with that, Rachel. And then I'll just kind of stop sharing my screen and hand it over to you.
Sounds good. I did not make a PowerPoint or anything, but.
Oh, no, that's not the point.
So I'm Rachel Race, and I work for Riveredge Nature Center. I was in the West Bend School District for the past 2 years, and now I'm in the Cedarburg School District. And we have a really cool collaboration with the school districts where we basically go and hang out in the district and work with teachers to get them outside with their students, because we all know it's super important to be outside and get those kids connected to the world around them. So Kate gave me some questions, so I'm just going to use that so I don't go over on time. So why I think it's important for students to go outside. I think it's really important to have those connections to the specific world that's around them. I think about a lesson that I did, I think like 2 years ago, and I asked the kids what we would see in the school forest, and one kid seriously said a polar bear. And I'm like, oh, where does he live? Well, he lives outside. And I'm like, okay. So then we talked about, like what we would find specifically in our area. So I always recommend with teachers to, if they're doing any animal-based stuff, to do things that the kids are going to be seeing in their environment, so they have that connection to be in their environment. Another one, sensory input. I sometimes do a guided sensory talking about like a kid in this classroom walking to their desk, sitting down. The temperature is the same, the volume's usually the same. Most likely everything's basically the same except for their attitude maybe. So outside, the sensory is always different. It's always different weather. The temperature is changing. It might be windy. It might be wet outside. So I think it's really important to get students outside for that sensory input. And it doesn't matter if they're 4K, middle school, or high school. I think it's important for all of these students to be outside to be able to start to gauge their sensory input and be able to multitask basically while they're outside. Also, the tangible hands-on experience is really important for students, just to be able to touch things and like engage with the environment around them. So that's my third point. And then I like to say it's really important to get students like used to being outside and it being a regular experience for them. So those are some of the key points for me and what I talk to with teachers. Kate asked what my favorite tips and tricks are. So I always think it's really important to think outside the box. And I say that by, like, if you're doing counting or you're doing math lessons, like what can you use that the kids have to go find and use those for their math lesson? Can they draw a clock on the ground and then do like a visual like clock lesson, or just thinking outside the box how you can use the environment around you. I also like to carry a backpack with me at all times, and I encourage teachers to create their own backpack. So something that has, you know, obviously the first aid kit, kids' medications, their water bottle, but other things like I have a chime that I use with kids so that they know like when their exploration's done. Ice cube trays are great depending on what you're doing. I have bubbles always, because if it all of a sudden goes crazy with littler kids, you can start blowing bubbles and they'll all come back. It's pretty amazing. And then I see Jenny laughing. So like any other little exploration things that you want, like cottage cheese containers are great to have to collect things if they're going to be doing counting or going to make artwork with them. A wagon's great if you plan on literally just taking your classroom lesson outside. Like a collapsible wagon for your classroom is great to just put all your lesson materials in before the kids even get there and then just wheel it out when you're ready. Canvas bags are great too, or grocery store bags if you want the kids to be your little helpers to carry things out. I always remind people that it's okay to not know everything about being outside. So kids always will say like, what's that, Miss Rachel? And I always tell them like, what does it look like? What is the texture of it? Is it big? Is it small? And using those observation skills. So I think that's really important to know, is like one of your tips and tricks is to really just be honed in on helping kids use their identification and, well, not identification, their observation skills. Okay, I'm running out of time. My favorite lessons are literally just going for observation hikes. So if you guys need a mask break, a great way to have a focused mask break is just walk around the school with the kids and just be able to make observations with them. They end up going in so many different directions of kids noticing things that you don't see or maybe another adult doesn't see. So it's just really cool to be able to use those observation hikes. And it doesn't have to be like a real hike, like in a woods. It could just be on the school block. So if you're in the city, it doesn't matter if there's only 2 trees on your schoolyard. I have seed collecting and active games like oh deer and squirrel games. There's lots of other things I could say. I could go on for hours. So I'm going to end there, and you guys can give Kate my information if you have questions. And I'll pass it off to, I just don't want to run out of time to chat. Who's next, Kate?
Cool. Paul's going to be next, but thank you so much, Rachel. I thought that was such an awesome, really quick rendition. So thank you so much. And thank you for always being such an awesome, outdoor ed enthusiast. I love it. And so now we'll go to Paul, who works for Janesville School District. Oops, I guess I could start my video as I'm talking. Paul has been working with the school forest and trying to get all district-wide folks to go outside. So we've worked with them a bunch of different times over several years, and we really appreciate your efforts, Paul. If you want to talk a little bit more about that on a kind of district administrative level, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Well, thanks, Kate. So just so you know, for all of you, I took 1/2 credit of environmental education in college. So you probably all have way more experience and knowledge than I do about environmental education. So it's kind of ironic that I'm presenting right now to all of you. But essentially what happened was the former coordinator retired, and they looked in our office and said, okay, who's going to take this over? And everybody else literally was in a line, and they all said no, and it landed on my plate. So I'm now the coordinator of what we have. It's called JSOL, or Janesville Schools Outdoor Lab. It's a 160-acre forest in Janesville. It's a city park, but it's co-managed by the school district and the city. As Kate said, I used to be an elementary teacher, and when I first moved to Janesville, JSOL is basically just used by 4th grade students. They would go out in the fall and in the spring, every single 4th grade class, and they would have high school guides that would go out there with the kids. Very little training was given to the guides, and it was just kind of, the teachers didn't really see the connection with their curriculum, and they didn't really enjoy going out there. They saw it was like a detour of what they were doing in their regular classroom. And so JSOL kind of got this bad reputation of, oh, do I really have to go out to the forest, right? And so when I took it over then about 5 years ago, I walked around the property and I was just overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do, where to start, in terms of educational opportunities, in terms of maintenance on to the buildings. There's no signage out there. Just everything was just, I was just overwhelmed. And so I had gotten an email from, I think it was from Gretchen Marshall, from UWSP, and I reached out to her and I said, I'm new to this. I don't know what to do here. And so she had suggested I go up to Wausau, to the DC Everest School Forest, and then also the Boston School Forest, and just visit those places and get a feel of what it could be. If you've never seen those two places, they're unbelievable. So I'd highly recommend going to those. So what I realized is I needed to put together like an advisory task force or a committee with people from our district, community members, environmentalists, and volunteer groups, just anybody I could think of. And so we had about 40 people who joined our committee. I guess the reason why I should say that I'm talking to you about this is, like I said, I'm sure you're all experts in the day-to-day, your daily lessons or what to do. But I want you to start thinking bigger, like for your district, like how can you reach out and empower other teachers? And I guess I'm hoping that through my conversation here, you'll see that not everybody is a lover of nature or a lover of outdoor education or sees the purpose. And so I'm really trying to help you become an ambassador, at least for your district, for this. So after I put together this task force, we kind of broke off into committees, and we realized we kind of created different projects that could be worked on. And so over the next year or so, we did like physical maintenance type activities out at JSOL. Like we improved the shelter, we've got a log cabin, so we kind of did some updating on that and whatnot. But then I really realized that I wanted to get more kids involved with going out there instead of just 4th grade. So I just said, okay, we're going to stop doing a 4th grade spring trip, and we're going to make all the 2nd graders and all the 6th graders go out there. And in my head, I thought, oh, this is going to be simple and they're going to love it. Well, there was immediate pushback. Why do we have to take our classes out there? There's no connection with going out to JSOL with what I'm doing in my classroom. And I immediately realized, I needed to have more buy-in or more professional development for our teachers, because they were mad. And so then I reached out to Kate and Nicole from the Wisconsin Environmental Ed, I can never remember your name, Kate, I apologize, Environmental Ed Center. And we had them come down and do some professional development with our 2nd and our 6th grade teachers. And the feedback was amazing. We gave them some activities that they could do while they're out at JSOL, and it was much more successful the next time they went out. So I Kate had asked again, if I could address some points here. And she asked, well, what are some barriers that you're experiencing from a district level? And I think really, like I said, the perception of going out to the JSOL by the teachers and administrators varies. On one hand, they say, oh yeah, we really value outdoor education. But when it really comes down to it, and you've got test scores that you're trying to hit and marks that you're trying to hit, and why are you going out to the forest when you've got to be working on reading and math? And so from a district level, you get really mixed messages, and it's a challenge to constantly be banging the drum of the importance of outdoor education and making that connection. And it really comes down to educating the other teachers and administrators and showing them the importance of why outdoor education is so beneficial. And it doesn't happen in just one professional development. It's something that is just continuously needs to occur. So that another thing is just having our teachers feel comfortable. I know before Rachel talked about, getting the kids comfortable, but it's also about getting the teachers comfortable with going out into the forest. And like Rachel said, you're not all experts, and it's okay not to know things. But really looking at those Wisconsin environmental ed standards, I think when you can show the teachers those and just, the engaging, exploring, and the connecting, that's really maybe at the elementary level that you're trying to hit and introduce the students to. Our opportunities that we had our district school board increased funding for busing. So all of our busing to our school forest is free. That was a barrier in the past because teachers would have to pay for taking their kids out there. And besides the 4th and the 2nd and 6th grade, we've also gotten the word out to the other buildings and schools that, hey, there is free busing. And so we've had like environmental education teachers go out there. We've had high school phy-ed teachers go out there. We've had advanced construction and engineering teachers go out there. And we've had a lot of our charter schools really take advantage of that and getting their at-risk students out to the school forest. So that's been great. And then Kate had asked if I had any suggestions for COVID. And this year, we are not allowed to do any field trips in Janesville, so we can't do any of the busing. So for a minute, I was like, what are we gonna do? But then I realized I needed to not just think of outdoor education as going to the school forest, but outdoor education, what can the teachers be doing at their own schools in terms of outdoor education? And so I had a little PD on that that was well received, that the teachers really could see, oh, I can connect my classroom with just here on the playground. I don't have to go make it a big special day trip, field trip. I can just do it during math class. We can just go outside. So I guess that's what I'm talking a lot here, but I guess those were the main things from a district perspective that I've noticed. So I guess I'll turn it back over to Kate.
All right. Well, thank you. That was so awesome. And I think it's good to understand the different levels when you're thinking about like going outside and system change. And clearly COVID is like a special case, but we all have a passion for going outside. So we're gonna break out into small group discussions. And so I have a couple questions that can help kind of guide us, but I really want it to be more free form. And so basically in the small group breakouts, it'd be nice to hear, what have you done teaching outside that works really well? What are some ideas that you have that you would like to talk through? What are some challenges you are having in COVID? And I'm not really sure exactly what people want to talk about, but there's bullet points there. I think those 3 big categories are good enough. And most of the people here can probably define their own conversations. But what I would like is that you identify a person to do a report back on your conversation. And so just report back out on the things that you talked about in your small group discussions. It seems like we have about 20-ish people in the group, and so probably we'll do a breakout room of, let me see, I'm just learning how to do a breakout room. So we're gonna assign 4 rooms. Yeah, 4 rooms. I feel like more is better than less. And then we'll go into that and see what happens. And we'll try and let you know, again, this is the first time I'm doing breakout rooms. So I'm gonna try and let you know when we're coming back together. But make sure that you have someone who's like willing to report out on your results, and we'll come back together in about 10 minutes or so. So does that sound good to everyone? I hear all the yays. Man, this virtual format is funny. Anyway, all right, we got one. So I think I opened them up.
Hi, Rachel. I'm Samara. Oh, your mic's off. There we go. I enjoyed your presentation. I think you had some great tips for activities and things to do with kids outside. So
Thanks.
yeah. And I'm one of the energy educators in KEEP. So I was just listening in to see what kind of a presentation Leaf was doing, and I'm an ecologist by training. So this is my comfort spot anyhow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Sherry, it's nice to meet you as well. Sorry to interrupt, Samara.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, are you, is Jeff someone you know?
Jeff is my husband, yes.
Okay.
And
Jeff
and
is-
I know
works with him.
Sherry.
You know Sherry? Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff is the DPI agriculture educator
Consultant, yeah.
director or consultant, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Nice to meet you.
Cool.
And you
So for Rachel's background, I work at a public charter school in the Waupun School District, and it's got a focus on agriculture and the environment, and I get to teach the agriculture for grades 4K through 6th.
Oh, that's awesome.
They have an amazing school. Like they have chickens.
Great. I had a teacher ask me the other day, do you think we can get chickens? I was like, well, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know if the city allows, I don't know any of that.
Yeah,
I've
I
never
don't know. Knowing
Sherry, was it a
Cedarburg,
process for you to have to get permission to get chickens at school?
It was a process. I came in on year 2 of the school, and a lot of the legwork, so to speak, was done because there was some ordinances. They could have chickens in Fox Lake, but it was a limit of 4. So the school had the opportunity to work with the city council and get kind of an abbreviated version for the school.
Yeah.
But Rachel, what I would say to that is, if you have any way of just making that a student-led project and having them do the research and reaching out to the city and looking online, that has been a very positive aspect of what I get to do with our students, is letting them know little kids can do big things. And, you know, when they present to the city council, their voice is heard so much louder than any adults.
Yeah. It was a kindergarten teacher, so I'm like, well, I don't know about the research part.
Well, you'd be amazed with some guidance.
Yeah. And I think the health benefits, like the calming emotional benefits of chickens, cannot be overstated. I got chickens because I had a really active 7-year-old boy, and the only time I would see him calm was when he wanted to hold the birds. Like he just knew to get to the birds, he had to chill out.
Yeah.
And He's 19 now and he still loves chickens.
Hmm.
So-
I think any of animal, like a classroom pet, I'm a former
Mhm.
biology teacher, and it was nice to have a focus like that. I mean, we had a class snake once in a while. We had a class turtle for a while. Never had any of the fuzzies, but my daughter's school, she's at Tomorrow River Charter School, and they have chickens and oftentimes a class pet, but due to COVID this year, they didn't get Bun Bun back. Bun Bun is their rabbit.
Who would have guessed?
Yeah, yeah.
So Sherry, are your students in your classroom now? Are they back or what you doing?
Our district is in person to start the school year, and last week, Wednesday, due to a shortage of teachers in one of our school buildings,
Mhm.
the district made the choice to take a week and transition to online remote learning just for this week and to reevaluate.
Okay.
So we're able to head back and be back in person again.
Okay.
It was a welcome thing to be back with the students.
Yeah, I'm sure. So what does, since you're the only one here who is like a full-time teacher, if I'm correct, because Rachel, you do outreach with and to teachers and schools, right? Yeah, so what is outdoor education looking like for you in this week of online learning? How have you adapted? Because yours is such a hands-on type of curriculum.
Right. I probably haven't adapted very well because I am considered to be a special. And so I haven't been live with the kids.
Mm.
I've been providing them with some recorded activities. But I would say that if we continue in the remote learning, that would be something I would want to look at differently with the teachers, the classroom teachers, so that we can collaborate on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So do you have your own group of students, or do you go into the other classrooms? And I'm sorry, what grade do you teach? What grades?
I work
3
with
questions.
all of our grades. So so think of art, phy-ed, music, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So that's what I'm sort of perceived as. But then I also, so I'll see them in my classroom, which is a teaching kitchen / garden / greenhouse / really anything outside. But then if there's a correlation, some way we can team up with the teachers and use agriculture or the environment to teach the reading or the writing, then I'll push into the classrooms and be a part of different projects with them.
Okay.
I would say as far as like outdoors, when we were in person, we worked to develop some different spaces, even more so than we already had, so that teachers could be outside as much as they wanted for classes. We created, with student help, a new space in the front of our building just by working with the city for some mulch and using stumps for seating. And so that's a second formal outdoor classroom. But we also, the principal and I walked the grounds and we identified some other spaces that would work really well for just taking your class outside on a whim if you needed to, and identifying them and then having like a sign up sheet, so to speak, so that teachers were getting out. And I've seen a lot of that. So that's been really kind of a neat, I guess, benefit of COVID, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully it'll carry forward as well when we're beyond this and back in the classroom. Teachers will feel brave enough to be out of the classroom teaching as well.
Rachel, I'm a little bit curious. You had some interesting ideas with the backpack and your bubbles. I know for this year with COVID, like we're telling the kids they have to have like Frankenstein arms for spacing when they're lining up and other things like that. I've heard someone say they say hawk arms and that kind of stuff, or just do a hawk call and the kids know that means space out. I'm just wondering if, if you have any other little tips and tricks you've sort of implemented.
I think the same idea with the arms band
Mhm.
or the wings band. Most of the kids were pretty good, but we also sometimes wear the masks outside. So if we did do something in a small group or like we're close together, the kids could all see and be a part of it.
Yeah.
So I guess it all depends on how strict the district is with needing them to be that far apart. I think they're all supposed to be an arm's length away, but they've also done smaller group activities. There are some really cool formations that I'm trying to think who made it up. Maybe I'll look it up and throw it in the chat when we get back. But like the ideas of doing carpet squares or, just spots to have like classroom space out 6 foot so that kids can have masks on and still teach
Yeah.
instead of doing just a big circle if you have a smaller space.
I think that might have been, if I'm thinking of the right group, green schoolyards they had. done
Yeah, I
some
think
of.
you're right. Yeah.
Maybe
I mean,
even
it's
if
just
you were going to have like circle time, if each kid is assigned to find a stick that they would lay down in the shape of a circle, so then they could sit at either end of those circles, creating the nodes as well, and gives them
Yeah.
something to do and look for, kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah, we haven't done any. I think that all the nature-based stuff at Riveredge that they do, they already have all the calls and everything that they do. So some do like owl calls. I love the
Excuse me,
hawk.
does everybody see we have 10 seconds left?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I just wanted to make sure. Sherry, would you mind just sharing with the big group a little bit about your school? Since
More than I do. Thanks. I was just talking to Ruth Ann. She's probably done a few more of these things than I have. This is my first one. Hopefully it went okay for you all. Anyway, let's have people kind of report back out and hear what we have to say. I don't have a format for that, so I guess we'll just have to take leadership.
Okay, so I will jump in. It was great talking to the others. It was interesting. We're from all over the state. I think we have the whole state covered. But and we all are different. We all have different duties. One of them was an ag teacher. One of them has charter schools, and one of them is an environmentalist that goes to buildings. So we just kind of talked about the different opportunities or lack thereof, and of getting to your school forest. I think for our environmentalist, she hasn't been as busy as she hasn't been in the past, just because of COVID and not being able to get the schools out or get to the school forest and things like that. But our charter school has done field trips to their school forest, and they kind of talked about the kids with their masks and social distancing, and that the biggest challenge really, the kids have been great with the masks, it sounds like, but the biggest challenge really has just been the busing, because having to like almost double or take 2.5 the amount of buses that are normally required, because you can't fit that many kids on a bus. I think, did I cover everything kind of for our group? Yeah? Okay, cool.
All right, let's do, did you have numbers as your groups? Paul, what number were you? 2. Okay, let's do group 1.
All right, I guess I'll jump in here. For our group, it was just Alex and I, and then we had Annie with Keith. And then we also had, I used the LEAF curriculum actually for my 6th grade exploratory class, which got added because our middle school is on full time. So they had to add more classes to spread the kids out more. So I'm using that. Otherwise, at the high school level, we're in cohorts. So it's a challenge with Alex. Their school is 100% virtual. So it's completely different there. That's just a big challenge in general. But it was good just to share some ideas of when we can get out and start using that stuff again.
All right, let's hear from group 3.
I don't know what our group number was, so I might be speaking out of turn. But for our group, of the 4 of us, I am the one who has the formal teaching role. I teach agriculture for grades 4K through 6th grade at a public charter school. But Steve asked me if I would report out. So I think, we focused on kind of how, in my mind, the outdoors has actually been amped up a little bit with our teachers, the wanting to be able to go out and have that opportunity to take a mask down, or just to give the kids, just a little bit more space to be apart. So we at our school had created an additional outdoor classroom, and simply the students got to help with it, but putting down cardboard and then mulch that the city provided, and using log stumps. And then the principal and I going out and around the grounds and looking at, okay, here's a nice shady spot. We're on a busy highway, so some of our outdoor classroom spaces that are closer to our playgrounds are distracting, but also loud because of semis. So just finding other spaces that would work. And then the teachers had to they sign up so they know that that space is available, but a lot more use of going outside and doing their math or their social studies or those other classes outdoors.
Thanks so much. Sherry took us out of the number format, so someone else is going to need to volunteer, but it was totally awesome. So thank you. I feel like there's one mystery group left, but if everyone's shy, that's okay. I'm a really shy person, so I find this like virtual format, really complicated. I'm not going to put my video on, but if the last group wants to report out.
I think it was group 3 that hasn't reported out, if I'm not mistaken, because Sherry, we were group 4.
I think it was our group, so group 3. We just kind of talked about how there is like a push to go outside, but a lot of, I know my administration is really hesitant to let us go outside because they're afraid that we'll forget to social distance and getting kids down the hall might be challenging. But just making sure that your admin knows that there is a way to do it, and the students need to go outside. They need that break, that time away from their screen.
Jillian, one of the things that our school, and I think Rachel said that this is happening too, like our students have to, and maybe you guys are already doing this, but like Frankenstein arms in front of them. So when they're in lines, they do give some space. I know I also heard with a different outdoor workshop, they talked about teaching the kids about like hawk wings. The thing about that, if they swing their arms, then they're hitting each other. But, like knowing that you've got that kind of space, and they just did a hawk call instead of saying space socially, and social distance. They would just, do the hawk call, and then the kids know to put their arms out and give themselves a little more room. So those are a couple tips and tricks that I've heard.
Well, we've reached our 5:30 mark, but I'm totally open to like hanging out here. And I love kind of continuing the conversations if people want to do that. So, oops, I forgot to put my video back on. Yeah, so if people want to continue conversation and just kind of like discuss some of the things that they did in their small groups, or if people have feedback for future ones of these that we're having. It's basically trying to be a space for people to get together and talk about like, all right, what works, what doesn't. So I'm pretty open to whatever. And I just want to thank everyone so much for participating, and you're all awesome and you're doing a really great job. And yeah, let us know if we can provide more things. But again, like Sherry, is it Sherry or Cherie? Oh, you're muted. I guess
Just
it'll be
Sherry.
okay, Sherry. Sherry, thanks for like adding in that comment. I would totally appreciate if other people would, in the big group be adding things in, but I also get that people need to leave. So we can do as it flows.
Kate, I'm just going to let you guys know, I just added a link to Green Schoolyards America. If you're familiar with that or them, I've noticed they have a lot of really good resources related to teaching outdoors, and they have a specific section for COVID learning outdoors. So that link would take you there.
Awesome. If other people have things too, and Steve, actually, we have a COVID thing on the Leaf website that maybe would be good to share if you can find it. I looked for it earlier today for a different thing and it was a little bit buried, but still easy enough to find. But yeah, if anyone else has other comments. I see Nicole had a kitty come. I'm gonna go let my kitty out of the door. That I've had him locked up. So he's so sad because his brother had surgery and he's away. And so now I'm gonna go get the kitty while you all are thinking about what you want to do.
Is there anyone who teaches AP Environmental Science for high school by chance?
No, I teach regular environmental science, but not AP.
I used to teach AP Bio, and we thought about teaching AP Environmental Science, but never decided to at our school. Did you have specific questions? Or are you looking for other people around the state who maybe teach that?
I'm just kind of looking for like how pacing is going for this year, because I just feel really far behind. And now we've switched to a cohort model, and I have like half the amount of days with my kids, and I was wondering like what other people were doing to kind of stay on pace, because I've never taught AP. Like I'm a first year teacher, so I've never taught AP, and let alone now my days are getting shorter and shorter. So my pacing guide is like way thrown off now, and I feel like I'm gonna fall too far behind, but I don't know if anyone had tips or anything of how to stay on track or what's enough to give to students to kind of like do at home.
I could just touch base. Although I don't teach AP, we have cohorts. So I have biology and environmental science, and then the 6th grade class. Middle school is there 5 days a week, but the high school is in cohorts. So we only have them 2 days, and the other 3 days are basically virtual days. So Monday and Tuesday, you're repeating Thursday and Friday. So with that model, you are going to be behind. There's just no way material that you'd normally cover in a month, you're now covering in 2 months. And there's just no way around that, because you can't push them. You can't have those expectations because they will just shut down on you. So I think that's across the board. By the way, Kate, I like that you have Black Cat also.
I feel like that is completely a norm too. I mean, this is just from the middle school perspective, but everything is taking a really long time to do. We're 100% virtual, and we were planning on starting a unit 1st of October, and we've pushed it all the way back to November. It's just taking a really long time, because the independent work, like if you want to stay on track, ideally you'd be like, okay, I'm going to teach this, and then I'm going to give them a bunch of asynchronous work. And they should be able to do this asynchronous work because it's pretty much what I was going to teach in that same amount of time. It does not work like that. They do not finish it. And you can follow up as much as you can. You can ping them. You can try to Google Hangouts them, but they just will not get it done because it just doesn't have the same feel. So it's just hard.
Yeah, hang in there as a first-year teacher. I mean, it takes at least 3 years to get your feet under you, and to teach an AP class, the first year is really tough. But I mean, I think everybody knows what we're going through, you know, as far as it's, the expectations can't be as high as they would in a typical year. And there may be even some exceptions in the AP program. I don't know if you know, contact the AP, what is it, the College Board or whatever, and or just look at their website, because they may have some suggestions as well about things that are going to be a little different this year because of COVID. I haven't been on the AP website in a long time, but I would check it out.
Hey, and I would just say, like, even the fact that you're here is super awesome. And like, again, like what Steve said, is first year teacher really hard. And you have the layer of COVID, and you're teaching an AP class, which has another level of standards. So like, don't get discouraged.
If you need specific lessons about things, we can help you with that. I didn't teach AP environmental science, but I taught a lot of the same materials that would be on AP environmental science in a kind of a school forest based class that I designed, just a natural resources in general. So we did a lot of ecology. And so if you're short of ideas or activities, or you need some help with that, feel free to contact us.
Thank you all. Thank you. That's
You bet.
good advice. Thank you.
Jillian, I'm struck now that my suggestion was Frankenstein arms for getting outside, because that's probably not going to work for your kids. You have a
That's
little
okay.
different crowd.
I teach agriculture, so I'm all about the silliness. I try to do
Yeah.
it as much as possible. The kids like it. They're like, your class is actually fun.
Help me understand, if you're, you said it was more administrators that are worried that the kids aren't going to stay spaced, and that's why you can't go outside?
Yeah, so they've kind of like just put we have to, even if we're outside in the parking lot, we have to wear masks. And if we're in the, like, taking our kids out, they're worried that we're not going to social distance. And then they said we can go outside, but there's special like precautions that you have to do, and you have to fill out forms, and it's just like too much on my plate right now. And so I just said I'll worry about it later. But I don't know. To me, it's just like moving my classroom. Like, I don't teach any different outside than I would inside.
Yeah. Rachel, I think, was mentioning there's, have you seen, there's this document, and I want to say it was from Green Schoolyards, where it does show like your seating arrangement, different ways that you can be socially distanced, and it's meant for outdoors.
I can try to pull it up right now.
Yeah, because I think something like that, I wonder if you even just present that to your administrator and, you know, see if there's that opportunity to, in some ways for our building, we go outside because we can't space as much as we need to inside based on our spacing and like where desks have to be. So it's interesting to me that that can't be an option for you, a little easier option.
Yeah, especially because they told us like half of our rooms are in non-compliance because our desks are like 5 feet versus 6. So we're just trying to do the best we can.
It's a good motto to have.
I am wondering if anybody else here right now is having to do virtual at all, or a lot of. No, I think it's just me.
I have a daughter who's in, she's a freshman this year, and she's all virtual, although Wausau just decided to go back on November 2nd to face-to-face.
Wow.
Yeah, which seems, they just made the board decision on Monday. I don't know why. There's a bunch of loud parents in Wausau pushing for it. It seems like it wouldn't have been a bad idea to start face-to-face, but to go virtual, or to go face-to-face now when numbers are skyrocketing, doesn't seem to make much sense. But so where are you, Alex?
I am in Monona, so
Okay.
Cottage Grove in Monona, and we are fully in the Dane County, like, virtual closed off bubble, and it's not looking like we will be even considering going back until maybe third or fourth quarter. So it's just really challenging to figure out what to do and how to do it. I was thinking of using the community tree map, but doing it separate from kids, like having to teach them like on the computer screen and then be like, now everybody quick, go find a tree and put it in the community tree map. I mean, maybe, I'm just not sure. And the things that we have done, I was sharing with my small group, we've been doing projects based on our garden, our school garden. Like we made signs for the garden, like the students constructed them at home. And then another group of students did some research about adding trees to our garden to make an orchard, to like help out our bees that we have, and to benefit from fruit as well. And they proposed that to the superintendent, which was really cool. And they could do all that, online, but some feedback that we've gotten from new students this year, we're a multi-age school. So we have 3 grades of students, 6th, 7th, and 8th, all mixed together. And from our new students, they definitely were like, I don't know the school garden at all. I don't have a connection. Like, why am I building this sign? Or why am I, okay, we're going to get some trees. So it was hard to like give them the connection to the place, even though like we're so place-based, and that's a really big component and a value for us. So it's just really tough. And actually right now, one of the big projects we're working on, I'm going to email Paul about this, is we're going to be working on our school forest too, and like trying to update it because nobody uses it and it's like a wreck. And we were hoping to be able to go there this year because we were thinking, like, a lot of people have said, and like Jillian, you're dealing with, that outdoors seems like it would be a better place to be than in schools at the moment. And we were really hoping that we'd be able to just have like a whole year of let's work on the school forest then and be outside, but we can't even do that. So I just don't know how to bring that kind of thing to students. So.
And
I give
Paul's
you credit for virtual. We did it for 3 weeks and I gave up.
Paul's certainly a great resource for that experience. But you're also welcome to call on us at LEAF too. We do, kind of a school forest planning workshop that we can do where we bring in teachers and help you get started.
We're actually working with a teacher who used to work at our school who has started a consulting outdoor education work, and like that's her primary job. So we're like working with her on that, and I would not be surprised. She's been connecting and networking with a lot of people, like with the school where the school forest is located, with the superintendent, just making sure everybody in the district is kind of on board with this project that our middle school is going to really be engaging in. And I know that she had some resources from you guys, but I don't know if she's directly reached out to you guys at all. But
do you know that
Alyssa
person's
Hartson?
name? Just Alyssa
Yeah.
Hartson?
Well, and the
I'll
other
write that
thing I
down.
would say is that we can think about virtual things, and then Paul, like it sounds like virtual, I don't know if I like that would be verrückt auf Deutsch. But like Paul has had a huge increase in virtual, and maybe they've gone totally virtual now. I'm not sure what Janesville is doing, but I think that would be a good resource. And then we can also think about translating some of our courses that we usually do, like Intro to Forestry Ed, or Step Outside, or whatever. We can think about, okay, if you're teaching virtually, what does that mean? And try and make resources adaptable to that, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I think like if there are quality engaging activities, ideally you would think like, oh, the kids would go outside next, like in their yard and maybe do it, but we can't force them to, they could just be like, I'm just going to check all the boxes and sit here at my computer and not go outside.
Well,
So-
that's kind of remote learning right now. It's like, all
Yeah,
right,
I know, it's inevitable. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
it's going to be huge disparities. It's going to be problematic for long term.
Mhm.
Yeah. How hard is it to have them like do a short video? Can you, you know, you could have them go outside and, you know, show a tree
It's
and,
a bit of
you
an
know,
equity issue because Chromebooks
okay.
don't, like our Chromebooks are really bad and they do not record video, I don't think. So if they have a phone, yes. And we have been doing some, like, if you have a phone, grab it or borrow your mom's phone or something like that. But being as they're sixth graders, not everybody has a phone.
Yeah.
So it is challenging to say like you have to show a video. But that is a perfectly reasonable, I think, idea because most parents, especially we've been like communicating with parents and letting them know beforehand, like, you know, with the sign project, for example, like I dropped off all the materials at their houses and just like let the parents know and informed them. And the parents have been pretty supportive, you know, of helping out with this. And the same thing is true of like today or this week sometime, you're gonna have to let your student use your phone to take a video. So
Hmm.
I think that's reasonable.
The other thing I'll say about that is a couple teachers that have taken the Step Outside Online course that went virtual when COVID hit commented that when they did, there's a project-based learning component to that one, though it's more K-8, so wouldn't apply to you necessarily, but they were like, oh yeah, when we actually did project learning outside, like there was way more participation. And so I don't know if participation is a challenge in general, but like the project-based learning, it doesn't help with the AP science stuff. I don't know. You're in a tough boat. Sorry.
Well, I'm not doing AP. I am PBL.
Oh, well, whatever. It's like,
So PBL works definitely. And we have seen like the engagement like that too. Like in the spring, we had kids plant gardens and we actually did a raised garden bed project where some students chose to actually have materials delivered to their house to build a raised garden bed and do that. And they actually kept them up over the summer and were interviewed by the Wisconsin State Journal and stuff like that. So that was cool. So we're trying to like think outside the box and do that kind of stuff, but it's just,
yeah, but that all virtual is, yeah, that's tough.
I mean, it's like the equivalent of like trying to do an AP thing. We feel like we're getting pushed back. Like we had all these plans for like the school forest and doing all this stuff. And now it's just like, we're going to be way behind according to our plans, which, you know, that's what the whole world is right now. So what can you do?
Have you, Alex, or have any of you watched any of the Green and Healthy Schools virtual learning series? Kate did one on tree ID and I did one on impervious surfaces and water drainage. And I did a short demo at the beginning. And when I asked you about the videos, I thought, you know, if you could get kids exploring their outdoor area immediately around their house or whatever living situation they have, and just start thinking about like the environment there and where does the water go. There's a lesson I shared there called Follow the Drop, which I'm sure there's like about 100 different versions of it in various settings out there. But the Follow the Drop, they have one for like a schoolyard or one for different places. There's 3 of them. I can't remember exactly what they all are, but you know, definitely if the kids can get outside right around their house and start thinking about maybe how their local environment is connected to the bigger environment. I don't know, Kate, probably EnviroAtlas is probably a little advanced, but it could still be fun for them to play around with, maybe just free play. I don't know if Chromebooks that are marginal would work very well. Jillian, EnviroAtlas would be something for your kids. It's an EPA. If you just look up EPA EnviroAtlas, it's a GIS application where there's an amazing amount, I would say a couple hundred layers you could add, but it it takes a lot of memory, so you do have to have a decent, but just to get, there's one where you can just do a follow the drop, and you drop it on the map of Wisconsin, it'll show you where that water, where that drop would go. And if you zoom in, it shows you even more.
That's so cool. And even doing that as like a screencastify recording,
Yep.
if I did it on my like quality computer and
Mhm.
shared it with kids, that would be really cool too.
Well,
And
and
Kit-
I really recommend watching Steve's video that he did, because there's a bunch of other resources. Steve is like a very humble, nerdy scientist, and so anytime you bring anything up, he's like, "Oh, well, how can we create the standard and make it an experiment?" So he's really cool to work with. But he did a really good job on the impervious surfaces and follow that drop, and just tracking watersheds and connecting them to forest health, which works really well with the community tree map. And so if you're, you know, thinking about different stuff to do, that I was looking for your link, Steve, but I don't think we've uploaded your video to the YouTube channel on WC. yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You might have to go to the Green and Healthy Schools page to
I'll
find it,
look for that. Well,
or just the WCEE YouTube channel. It's not there.
no, I looked and it wasn't there yet. Yeah.
Okay, they haven't relinquished it from Green and
Yeah,
Healthy
the
Schools yet.
control. I'll look in Green and Healthy Schools while you all keep chatting and stuff.
Yeah.
Oops, I should mute myself so you don't hear my typing probably.
Jillian, what is your school district, or the school you teach for?
I'm at Janesville.
Oh, you're at Janesville.
Yeah.
So Paul is cracking the whip.
Yes. Well, it's more so like our district than him. I think he would let us go to JSOL, but
Yeah.
like the folder I was handed for my AP environmental class was like JSOL every like other day. And now I'm like, okay, I can't go there. So one day I'll get there, but
Yeah, but have you talked to Paul? Because he might be able to maybe help you make that happen. I don't know.
yeah, he said he was gonna work on it this
Okay.
week and see about. We've been like full face-to-face for 3 weeks, and then we got shut down and pivoted to full online for 3 weeks. And now we just pivoted last week to this cohort model. So we've basically been through like all
Wow.
three, and it's the worst part about it is the lack of like a normal of like, I don't care
Yeah.
which one we pick, just as long as we pick one and stay with one.
Mm-hmm.
But our numbers in Janesville have skyrocketed, and so we're at like 22% or something in Rock County. So
22%.
yeah, we're bracing for flipping again, I think. So
Well, and I know
No.
Paul is equally frustrated about the JSOL stuff. So,
yeah.
but did you get to connect with him at all today or not?
I haven't, but I actually sent him an email to connect with him this week or next week. So
Cool. Yeah, no, he's a really good person to connect with, and yeah, I think that would be. Oh, here, I'm talking and doing things. Apparently, I'm not good at multitasking online. But anyway, yeah, he's a pretty supportive person. You have another ag ed teacher that's really good, Janet Meister, I think, in your district.
yep.
Um,
She's
but
also teaching AP
you're-
environmental.
Yeah, you're a big district. So yeah, figuring out how to do that is challenging. And I just found the link to, here is, oops, I gotta go out of private messages. Here's Steve's video.
Yeah, and Kate, I'm sorry I didn't share it anymore, because I'm thinking if I go off of this screen, then the recording is going to be whatever I'm doing to search, and I'm going to miss conversations. You know what I mean? You have me, I'm the recorder for this show.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what recording means, actually. We'll see what happens, I guess.
I should test it. Does anybody know? Like if I were to not leave the Zoom, but if I change my page, I wonder if
I think if you leave, it's okay because it's recording this
just
screen.
the Zoom.
Yeah,
Okay.
just the Zoom. At least that's what I've done in Google Meet before. Whenever I leave the screen, it just shows, unless I'm sharing my screen, then it'll record that.
Okay.
I'm
But
pretty
yes, all
sure you
these-
have to be sharing your screen if you're recording, I think.
I don't think so. No.
Well, I'm going to do a little test. I'm just going to go and see. I wondered too, is the chat box, is my chat box going to show in the recording? I can't imagine it would. Yeah, that would be.
So what it does on Google Meet is it pins the person who's talking and it only records their screen. So that's kind of annoying if you want like the whole grid view look, but
Right.
I think it records the person who's talking.
Interesting.
Mhm. These are all the tips and tricks I know because I'm
Right.
teaching virtually, guys.
I just helped to deliver virtually a school forest award at a board meeting the other day, and I could hear the presentation going on, but they had their camera set up in the back of the room to show the back of the room, so it wasn't showing the presentation. So then they did ask me to speak, and so then I said, well, I can't see who I'm talking to. Can you change the camera view? And so they changed the camera view. And so here are the people like the presenters, and then a big TV of me up above them. And I thought, okay, well, I should have just kept my mouth shut and just said what I was going to say. But anyway,
Oh man.
it was
You
funny.
gotta, like just watching yourself as you're presenting, I find like as a presenter, I get way more nervous and like and it's like a totally different format. There's no interaction and I'm a shy person.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre. Imagine if they all have their screens off and you don't even know if they're there.
I know, I've done that too, where it's like, okay, I'm just presenting to emptiness.
Yes.
Hello, can you
It
hear me?
feels so weird.
I wish actually that cell phone company, whatever one that did it, should redo that advertising.
For Zoom.
But with the giant
You're shy.
with the giant face on the screen, when I first got the job here, I was living abroad. And so I had to do my interview on like Skype or whatever. And it was just like that. It was like a giant room and there were like a whole interviewing committee and my face on the screen. So I know how that goes too, which is bizarre also.
Yeah.
I never had an in-person interview for getting a job.
Right.
Oh,
Well,
interesting
you're all
times to live in.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hey, well, I think this is really nice, but I feel like we've kind of discussed now we're getting to like the
Chit
small
chat.
chat, which
Yes.
is okay, and that's
Yeah.
good to do too, but maybe people have other things that they want to do and
Yep.
don't feel good about just hanging up. And so I just want to make sure people are feeling okay that if we end the meeting, it's okay.
Yes, that sounds good, guys. Thank you so much for
Nice meeting everyone and
connecting and
good seeing
everything.
you.
So,
Thank you.
Thanks for helping out, Rachel.
bye.
Bye. Okay, Kate. Hang on, Kate. I'm
All
gonna,
right.
because I have to stop the recording.